Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the monthly wrap-up for June of 2022. So, I had a pretty fun reading month. Actually, quite a bit of fiction, which is rare for me. So, let's get it started. One of the first things I got through this month was some Westerns. I took part in June on the Range, an event created by Michael K. Vaughan, in which people read Western fiction. So I started off the month with reading Louis L'Amour, Dark Canyon, a very short little Western adventure novel about a ex-outlaw, a young man named Riley, who's trying to live a clean life, build a ranch, but gets caught up in some deadly rivalries between two factioning families. And his former outlaw partners are there to try and help him without also being caught themselves. This was swift, fun read. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely give Louis L'Amour another try next year if there's June on the Range once again. Also for June on the Range, I read Michael Crichton's Dragon Teeth. This was published posthumously after his death, but he wrote it, I think, in the early 70s originally. And this is about a Yale student who gets caught up in the Bone Wars between Professor March and Professor Cole, right? Cope. I keep always forget his name. Professor March and Professor Cope, two paleontologists who were, embroiled in a deadly rivalry to try and get fossils of dinosaurs. And he starts off, within Yale. Then he goes off to the Bone Wars. Gets caught up in that. Then he ends up in Deadwood and meeting Wyatt Earp, and basically he leaves the comforts of the Ivy League and the East and enters the West and the wild, and where law really is non-existent. And this was great fun. This is a good time. You can really feel Crichton's love of both science and history meshing in this, and I really appreciated that because I love both of those things. I would actually highly recommend this, that people check this one out. And by the way, I forgot to say this before, all of these books I've talked about more in depth on previous videos. So if you're interested, you can go back to those episodes in which I spoke about them. These are just very brief descriptions. But yes, Dragon Teeth. That was the second thing that I read for June on the Range. That also inspired me to read another Crichton book, or reread, one that I had read a long time ago, but I want to go back to, and that's Eaters of the Dead, which was made into the film 13th Warrior. A fun film. And this is the retelling of Beowulf, or at least events that could have led to the poem of Beowulf, and told from the experience of an outsider, Ibn Fadlan, who was a real historical figure. And Michael Crichton basically creates a fake narrative for Ibn Fadlan, along with fake scholarly exegesis and footnotes, and a fake bibliography of primary and secondary sources. There's not much in here that's real, but he still does a fantastic job. He tells a great story. It's filled with all kinds of adventure and violence and humor, and you actually get a nice story arc with some of these characters as they get to know each other. I had a blast with this. I would highly recommend this. That sounds like something you'd be interested in. Another bit of fiction. Yeah, there's a lot of fiction this month, which is not typical for me. I read Charles Brockden Brown's Wieland with a group of great people. This is the first American Gothic novel, and it was interesting. It was based on a real crime that occurred in 1781 in upstate New York, and it deals with religious extremism and people becoming deluded because of their religious beliefs, and also deals a lot with the limits of our knowledge and perception, and how our senses can come to trick us and make us believe falsehoods. Now, it's told from the character of Clara, and one of the things I had said, I made a whole video just for this book. If somebody did want to read this, I recommend that they read Clara as an unreliable narrator. I think they will have a much more rewarding experience if they do so. But again, you can look at the video that I made for this to find out why. But otherwise, I'm really glad I read it, and I'm loving continuing on my journey through Gothic literature. We are finally, as a group, as a Gothic reading group, we are out of the 18th century and we are entering the 19th century in July. So that should be fun. And then the last thing that I read the month was nonfiction, and that is Adams versus Jefferson, the Tumultuous Election of 1800 by John Ferling, where he recounts that very the rivalry between these two ended up getting pretty dirty. And what is extraordinary really about this event is that we saw power pass from the Federalists to the Democratic Republicans. Really a transition, a passing of power between two factions that did not like each other at all, but it was peaceful. It was a peaceful passing of the torch, which is extraordinary. And at the heart of it, too, you have these two figures who were, for a while, very, very close friends. And then this political divide ended up kind of ruining their friendship. Fortunately, towards the end of their life, they find that friendship and connection once again. These are two men who really, really liked each other, but politically did not always see eye to eye, even if they respected each other. I wish there was a little bit more of that in here. Instead, we get a lot of background. It gets a little bit bogged down in the details as far as I'm concerned, but I still think it was worthwhile if this is a subject that you are interested in. And that's it. I'm making this video short today. Like I said, I've already talked about all these books in more depth. If you're interested in it, once again, you can go and check those out. So for the month of June 2022, I read Adams versus Jefferson, The Tumultuous Election of 1800, Charles Brockden Brown's Wieland, the first American Gothic novel, Michael Crichton's Dragon Teeth, Michael Crichton's Eaters of the Dead, and finally Lou L'Amour, Dark Canyon. If you've read any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, thank you, BookTube.